For a classic story of a hero saving the world from an evil force, The Legend of Zelda has some seriously strange moments. Sure, it's still a family-friendly romp, but there are times when Link gets into a few oddly dark situations, even for a kid's game. It makes sense though. When you're dealing with giant man-eating spiders, fire-breathing lizards, laser-shooting statues, and whatever Tingle is, you are bound to run into some bizarre and unsettling things. So let's celebrate that, shall we? I'm Future Gohan SSJ2 with the Leaderboard, and today we're counting down the 11 creepiest Zelda moments. Let's get started. Number 11. Raheem, Skyward Sword. There's another character in the Zelda universe that is almost as unsettling as Tingle, a demon lord who seems, shall we say, somewhat out of it. Introduced in Skyward Sword, Raheem's way of dressing alone should give you a hint at what kind of guy he is, but it's his touchy-feely way of talking to you that will definitely cause your skin to crawl. The only thing he seems to love more than his hands-on approach is himself, which might be a bit of a relief. I mean, do you really want to be stuck in a room with him? And even after all that slimy conversation, you still have to fight him in a few pretty tough battles. They're hard enough, but try doing them without thinking of that tight bodysuit. Ugh. Number 10. The Givedoe Mask, Majora's Mask. The Givedoe Mask itself isn't particularly frightening, especially when compared to other events and beings in the game. The way of getting it, on the other hand, is somewhat disconcerting. After using your hookshot to get to the top of a ridge, you find a small house next to a dry riverbed, and it's surrounded by mummies. If you try to enter, you are met by the voice of a scared little girl telling you to go away. After convincing a hostile ghost nearby to restart the river, the mummies are sent away, but that's the least of your problems. The little girl leaves her house, relieved to see that they aren't being kept at bay by the undead, allowing you to sneak in behind her. Once inside, you find that there is something much more terrifying waiting. A coffin that suddenly bursts open, revealing the girl's semi-mummified father slowly making his way towards you. It's so sudden that you barely have time to play the Song of Healing to rid him of his curse. And hey, you even get a nice little mask that makes the mummies not come after you. That's a good replacement for your soul, right? Number 9. Elegy of Emptiness, Majora's Mask. This particular song and its effects are somewhat noteworthy among the Zelda community, mostly due to its association with the Bin Drowned videos that circulated a few years ago. There's a good reason they use the power this song does. After defeating the king of Icona's castle, he teaches you a song that allows you to create copies for the purpose of holding down switches. It wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the fact that Link's statue is just, well, creepy. With its dead eyes and toothy smile, it ends up being one of those things that stays with you in the back of your mind, just staring and smiling. Try to sleep with that in your mind. Number 8. Yetta's transformation, Twilight Princess. Yetta seems pretty harmless when you first meet her, despite being a giant yeti. Her and her husband Givedoe live in the Snow Peak ruins, and in most conversations, they seem extremely nice. Givedoe even makes soup for you. No, Yetta's particular brand of scariness comes from her affliction. Link runs into her while looking for a shard of the Mirror of Twilight, and she tries to help you find it, but instead she leads you to ingredients for a soup Givedoe was working on. Eventually you find the key that gets you into Yetta's bedroom, where she is keeping the shard. She then looks into it and changes. Her eyes glow red, she grows fangs, and soon she attempts to murder you, which isn't really something new for Link. You eventually defeat her, and her husband get all lovey-dovey, which might be even scarier. Number 7. Wall Masters, the entire Legend of Zelda series. Though most of our freaky friends come from the later Zelda series, Wall Masters have been a mainstay in the franchise for a very long time. Despite their name, they don't live in the walls. Instead, they lurk somewhere above you, always just out of reach, and never detachable before they strike. They take the forms of hands that hang over Link, casting a shadow over him. Until they fall, Link can only run and hide, hoping that they don't grab him and take him away. Once dodged, they are a deal less scary, mostly scuttering around and trying to attack. But it's still a bit of a jolt when that shadow appears, right? Number 6. Dead Hand, Ocarina of Time. The Dead Hand is somewhat unique in its creepiness. No one is really sure what it is or where it came from, or if it's really part of Ganondorf's plan. He exists underneath Kakariko Village, in the well, and in the graveyard, meaning they've existed underneath the normal people of Hyrule for who knows how long. You aren't ever sure when it's coming either. You just enter a giant room and find arms growing out of the ground like trees. When you go to observe one of the arms, you are suddenly grasped, and from the center of the arena rises a giant lumbering creature with a long neck and a hanging jaw, slowly making its way towards you. You barely escape before you have time to attack, slashing at its horrible, eyeless gaze until it's dead. But hey, at least you get the lens of the truth out of it. Always gotta look on the bright side. Number 5. House of Skulltula, Ocarina of Time. Speaking of what goes on in Kakariko Village, there is another spot that hides one of the darker secrets of Hyrule. Nestled just to the right of the entrance on the top of the ridge is a quiet, unassuming house. When you enter, you find it bare and dusty. If you choose to venture into this obviously creepy house further, you will find the horrifying reason why it's called the House of Skulltula. You're descended upon by a creature that is neither man nor Skulltula, but something in between. He is the father of the house, and him and his 5 sons were cursed because of the family's greed. If you haven't immediately run screaming after meeting them, you can choose to help them, but it involves collecting 100 Skulltula tokens. Maybe it's best to leave them as eldritch horrors. Your life is simpler that way. Number 4. Ghosts of Romani Ranch, Majora's Mask. As you're probably learning by now, the land of Termina has a lot of really odd things going on in the 3-day span that you're there. And after helping a miner break a rock using high explosives, you run into another oddity of this weird land. The Romani Ranch, main suppliers of the town's milk. And they have a special problem that only the younger sister seems to be aware of. Weird creatures that are invading their farm to steal their cows. Though it might seem like the wild imagination of a little girl, if you choose to help her, you come back to her farm around 3 a.m. to find a horrifying sight. Dozens of alien-like ghosts slowly floating towards the barn. You have to hold them off until the sun comes up, because if you don't, they steal their cow along with the girl you promised to help. And the next time you see her, she seems strangely out of it. Like something beyond comprehension happened to her, and she will just never be the same again. Number 3. Happy Mask Salesman, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. The Mask Salesman is one of those characters that has appeared in both Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask as the same character, and really, he's always been kind of unsettling. It's less so in Ocarina of Time when you are simply helping him sell some masks to people, though he becomes oddly hostile if Link doesn't immediately pay him back the money he's owed. When Majora's Mask comes around though, he becomes a more major player, and along with that, he becomes majorly creepy. He is the one who gives you the mission of regaining the Majora's Mask from the Skull Kid, who stole it from him, and in return for your help, he restores Link into a human from his formerly cursed Deku body. He does become hostile again when Link doesn't immediately return the mask, and even shakes the boy violently for failing him. He lets you go off on your journey though, but then comes the most unsettling part, because Link only has 3 days before the moon crashes into the earth. If, for whatever reason, Link finds himself on the receiving end of that crash instead of a horrible death, you instead hear the soft, eerie words of the masked salesman. You find yourself back to day 1, standing in front of him. It seems that his powers are beyond even those of Majora. You can never leave Termina until he is satisfied. That smiling man controls your destiny. Number 2. Redeads, Ocarina of Time and Beyond. Redeads are pretty self-explanatory, but not much less frightening. Depending on which version of their creation you look at, they are either beings made from magic, clay creatures, or, obviously, the reanimated corpses of the dead. Though they appear in Wind Waker and Triforce Heroes, their most memorable appearance is, of course, from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. There they are tall, slow-moving creatures with no eyes and an open mouth, their skin brown and dried. They seem harmless from far away, but when you get into their field of sight, you will hear a blood-curdling scream before Link freezes. When Link is unable to move, then the Redead makes its way towards you, ready to latch itself on and start sucking the life from you. Thankfully, it's weak to fire, and in Majora's Mask, they are unable to fight you while wearing the Givedoe, Garo, or Captain's Mask. But that first moment when they pop up, man is it scary. Not speaking from personal experience, of course. Number 1. The Interlopers, Twilight Princess. The Interlopers set the entire underlying theme of the Zelda universe and show that even the most innocent of games can have something dark hidden underneath. This one starts innocent enough. After collecting the Tears of Light to restore the spirit Lanayru, he goes to send you on your journey. However, before he lets you go, he tells you that there is one thing that must be known. You are then sent drifting into a void of blackness as he regales you with the tale of the Interlopers. At first, it's quite pretty. You see the formation of the land by the goddesses, watching as they zip around you and form the Triforce, next to your best friend Ilia. things take a rather sharp 180, no pun intended, as it's shown that Ilia has a knife and goes to stab you. Her pupil's now missing. She is suddenly stopped, and as a sword is thrown to the side, it's shown that our hero has also become evil and pupilless, running towards the Triforce, which has 3 shadow versions of Link. It might sound weird, but from this point, it just dissolves into a Twin Peaks style nightmare. As Midna's helmet suddenly appears, Link turns into dust, only to find him among his shadow clones. The light goddess is the spell of evil, causing Link to shriek in terror, becoming dazed and watching clones of Ilia rain down from the sky. Not really the kind of story you'd expect from a game with a parrot who has an afro. Thanks for the 11 creepiest Zelda moments. Which moment was your fave? Got a creepy Zelda moment that freaked you out as a kid? Let us know in the comments. If you liked this video, be sure to check out some of our other videos by clicking the annotations or the links in the description. We have new videos dropping every week, so let us know what game you want us to cover next. And if you like getting more from your games, subscribe to the Leaderboard, where we help you game smarter.